Good evening, Dr. Cyril Onwubiko. Good evening, Dr. Celestine and Wendy. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in. It has been such an amazing time we've had for the past 4 days that this series has begun. I want to say thank you so much for joining in once again, everybody. We've learned a lot, have learned a lot. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Oluwadarasimi Kalejaye. I am a master's student at the University of Bolton, where I'm currently studying health analytics and technology. Today is going to be nothing short of exciting, and we're going to really learn a lot, and I know it's going to be insightful. Thank you so much for joining me once again, Dr. Cyril. Today, Dr. Cyril is going to be taking us on the topic, assume nothing is secure and prepare for recovery from the onset. But before I hand over to Dr. Cyril, I'd like to do a recap of the topics we have learned for the past couple of days. On the first day, we learned about machine learning applications and sustainable development. And this talk was given by Dr. Vishnu Pendyala. On the second day, we learned about funding, the RFF and collaboration. And this talk was given by Professor Hollins. The third day was very insightful, where Professor Adani taught us on the role of explainable machine learning in cybersecurity. And Dr. Celestine took us yesterday, which was the fourth day, on the secrets of research excellence. And today, like I said earlier, Dr. Cyril Onwubiko is going to be taking us on the topic, assume nothing is secure and prepare for recovery from the outset. Thank you so much for joining once again. I'd like to hand over to the very brilliant Dr. Cyril. And before I hand over to Dr. Cyril, I'd like to read his bio. Here, Dr. Cyril, he's a distinguished expert in enterprise security architecture. He has an extensive experience as a chief information security officer, and is the vice president of the PEAB and board member at the IEEE Computer Society. His expertise in European public policy and organizational leadership from the University of Oxford will surely provide invaluable insights into building resilient security framework. And from all I have said, you can agree with me that he's one of the best in the field. So once again, I'd like to introduce and bring to the floor Dr. Cyril Onwubiko. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the invite. Thank you, Celestine, for inviting me to the talk. I hope everyone could hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, good. And you can also see my slide, right?
Yes, we can.
Good, thank you. So the way I want to structure this is going to be interactive. So I would use the first 40 minutes to explain what this is and what we should get at from the lecture, and then allow 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A. I hope that the Q&A will drive deeper discussion, and if there's any questions I couldn't step through during the hour, I'm happy to collaborate offline to ensure that the audience get the full understanding and insight this provide. So this has come from industry speak. So the discussion today is more of hands-on, and in cyber, this is very apparent in everything we do. So nothing is secure in cyber. And I repeat that again, nothing is secure in cyber. So the way I like to work is to assume that nothing is secure and then prepare for recovery from the outset. What that means is, doesn't mean you should not secure the infrastructure or the services or the products that organizations run. What is apparent and what is important to take away is that as you're designing trusted computing systems, as you're designing high-stake services, as you're designing very highly assured services, you should actually design with the understanding that someday it could be broken in, it could fail, and therefore, do you have a plan for recovery? Do you have a plan for incident response? Do you have a plan for backup? Do you have a plan for resilience? Hence why cyber resilience is one of the top mentioned topic in critical national infrastructure. So that is stemming from the understanding that for any system to be secure, you need to consider the eventualities that it might fail, and therefore what you need to do to respond quickly so that services can continue. And what that means is having this understanding from the outset actually allows you to build that system in a very, very robust system. For you to build that system to be very fully resilient, highly available for critical mission system. And that is one goal that I want you guys to take away, that whenever you are building systems, build systems that are highly assured, highly valuable, but also build recovery from the outset. And with that, I'm going to play a video just to demonstrate what could go wrong and what recovery means, designing that from the outset. So I won't bore you with my background, but if you want to link up the QR code there on the left, you can take a photo of it and you'll be able to link with me straight away. Before I go on, I also want to say that the opinion expressed here or presented, whether it is verbal or written, strictly my opinion and has no association with any of my affiliations. I just want to make that clear, just so that because some of this can be quite sensitive. So the video I want to show is a video that this is a product launch that happened in real life. And the system you are about to see is a Tesla Cybertruck. And when this was designed, it was designed with the understanding that it would be resistant and proof to bullets. Therefore, it guaranteed the highest safety and the highest security involved. And this was designed with this assumption. And what you're going to see will lead us into a conclusion. This is just about a 2 to 5 minute video, but I want you to watch attentively so that we can step through that.
Revolutionary technology, real-world results. That's SAP Business AI. Be ready.
Sure? Yeah. Oh my God. Well, maybe that was a little too hard. Should we try them? Sorry? It didn't go through. So that's a plus side. Let's try the right. Try that one, really? Okay. Yeah. Sure. Oh, man. It didn't go through. All right. Not bad. Room for improvement. Sure? Yeah. Oh my God. Well, maybe that was a little too hard. Should we try them? Sorry? It didn't go through. So that's a plus side. Let's try the right. Try that one, really? Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Okay, what I wanted to illustrate with this video, did anyone see what happened? Can anyone tell me who were those people there? Does anyone want to answer? You can come off mute and tell me, or you can put it in the chat.
It's Elon Musk.
Good. So today, did you follow what happened? So this was the launch of the Cybertruck. And Cybertruck cost a minimum of £96,000 to get one of those. And the Cybertruck was designed that is so secure and safe that even with a bullet, a gun, you could not penetrate the glass. So on the investor day, Elon and Hanzog, who is the chief product engineer, they put this demonstration to the investor community to demonstrate that this is a vehicle that could withstand a gunshot and would not allow the glass to shatter. So he gave him a small ball, metal ball, to throw on the passenger's side of the mirror, and he shattered it, as you saw. And they joked about it and gave him again to try on the rear side, and something happened. What it tells us is, with the level of investment, with the level of construct that have gone in, with the level of safety measures, and with all the amount of money, this happened to a Tesla Cybertruck. Now, imagine if he had thought that, which was the real case, he never thought it could actually break. He never thought that could shatter, but it happened. Then he goes to tell you that never you assume that anything that you design is secure. So you should assume that it could be broken based on the motivation, based on the strength, based on the sophistication, and based on so many things. It could also be accidental. And then what would happen is, if you then design bearing that in mind, then you have a recovery plan. What would have been a recovery plan here would be that the layer would be layered, where the first one shatters, you wind down and you wind up, another one comes up. But that wasn't the case. And just goes to demonstrate that things could happen inadvertently, could happen accidentally, or could also happen deliberately. And therefore, if you design with recovery in mind, you're in a better position than designing without considering that it will be broken. Does it make sense? So I'm going to move on. Does anyone want to chime in on another thing that they observed on this video? Does anyone want to?
Oh man, it didn't go through.
I'm going to try and exit and move on. So what we've introduced on this as part of our study is ensuring that we design with understanding that recovery is important. So what we've done is a field study. So this work is a field study where we worked with a number of organizations, and in understanding what their problems were, we were able to create a framework. And this allowed us to ensure that we're designing systems that could withstand an incident similar to what you just saw with that video. And also, incidents could have happened without the intended consequences. So as we went to different organizations to speak to them, one of the things they told us is they want to know how they could reduce the impact if that incident happened. So they want to understand how they could reduce the data breaches if it does happen. So what we call the aperture of the risk. So blast radius is what impact do you have on the system, and consequently what impact it could have on subsystems and related other systems. So the way systems are built in enterprise, one system talks to another, another talks to another. So imagine the internet, which is in a collection of different networks. So you have your system that is sat in your home connecting to your ISP connects to the upstream provider connects to another. So there is a handoff, there is an interconnection. So understanding the aperture would then understand how you could minimize the blast radius. So blast radius is how many things that incident could impact as a result of one system being compromised. And that's one of the things that, the feedback we got from industry. The other feedback we got is, how could they proactively have the tools, the technologies, and the people in order to enable them in crisis management and also enable them in recovery from an incident. And the third factor they fed to us is how could they recover quickly if there was a cyber breach? So if a breach occurred, what are the processes? What are the procedures? What are the technologies they could actually leverage in order to address that particular cyber breach? And as you and I know, if you read online, almost in every singular day or week, there's always a news about one organization that's been breached or the other. I mean, the London Railway, Travel for London, they're still grappling with their own exploit. And there are many that, as you read online and on the news, you hear about that. And the question is, if we have all of these cybersecurity controls in place, why do we still have recurrent cyber attacks? Why do we still have high number of cyber incidents? It's because most of these were built without recovery in mind. If you build with recovery in mind, then you'll be able to address these three questions. You'll be able to minimize the aperture and contain that exploit if it happens. The next thing is that you'll be able to have the right tools and the processes and the people. So you'll be able to train your people so they become like forensic investigators and response providers. They will be able to have the right tools and processes. For example, recovery process optimization. For example, having a playbook that would allow incident response to kick off once there's an attack or a breach. And the other thing, it would minimize the number of occurrences of breach. And this could actually result by either an exploit, which is a compromise, or an IT failure. We all read about what happened to the cybersecurity vendor called CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike had a major outage. It wasn't a cyber exploit. It wasn't a breach, but it was an IT failure. So they rolled out a particular update, and that update crashed Windows servers. Now, it is not a breach, but it's an IT failure. The question in our mind is, if you also design for recovery, you'll be able to roll back those outages and roll back that update in order to provide a stable system that consumers can operate. And also, it would allow you to be able to be compliant with the regulators. And it would allow you also to fulfill your cyber resilience requirements and mandate. And it means that you'll be able to cater for your customers very well and also provide resilience for your organization. So these three questions is what I also want you guys to take away today is, as you're building system, ask yourself these three questions. How could I minimize the impact? So since it's inevitable, accidents happen. You might be going on the road and it's a pedestrian road, and somebody could climb the pedestrian road and knock you off. So accidents do happen, whether it is IT or in real life. So the first question is, how could we minimize that impact if it does happen? The next question, do we have the tools and technology and processes and the people to actually provide a recovery mechanism if it does happen? And the third one is, how could we actually recover quite quickly from the crisis and also minimizing the impact the data would have? So these are the three things I want you to focus your mind on. So moving forward. So, but the thing is, for you to provide cyber recovery, there are things you need to understand. You need to understand the system, okay? So some of the challenges that we encountered as part of our research is what I'm going to walk us through. So the first thing we saw that companies do not have an understanding who is responsible for managing their asset. So most of us are students, and most of at the universities, you have an IT people that they probably set up your account and revoke your account, and the doors have electronic doors that you would use your swipe card and you go. The truth of the matter is, if you go and ask your IT people, most of the time they don't know who is responsible for a particular thing or the other. So for example, who is in charge of their cloud? Who maintains the cloud? Who knows the assets and the laptops and the desktops, and who is responsible for those? Where are the database? Who have actually the operational catalog of all of the critical assets that organization, the university have? The truth of the matter, it would be in different places. And who coordinates that? Everybody thinks it's everyone's responsibility and no one coordinates it. The other thing is that these databases are not refreshed. So students come, students go. So who refreshes and makes sure that the asset management database is up to date and comprehensive? The IT person could also get a job next day and he or she will go to another job and another person comes in. Who makes sure that these assets that we have at the university level or at the industry level is complete, comprehensive, up to date? It is a problem and it lacks in time. The other challenge we saw is that systems go out of support. Systems become obsolete. Systems go out of version. Who makes sure that those systems are constantly updated and upgraded? There are still universities today running Windows NT, some running Windows 4.0, some running Windows 2008 R3. These are out of support systems. There are no longer patches for them, and there are no longer security updates for them. Therefore, they run what we call technical debt. You cannot support them. They're obsolete, they're end of life, and they constitute security risk and security expanding the landscape and the aperture of risk in the organization. Again, it might also be constraints of money. So the universities are not well funded, as an example. Therefore, they will be balancing the risk and reward. So they will not be able to dispose funding in order to constantly update these services as and when required. And therefore, there's a gap. And it is those gaps that the bad guys exploit in order to attack. And this is a moving target, whether it's in industry or in academia. There is no single organization that will tell you they're always 100% up to date. They run legacy. I mean, it happened with the airlines. And when they couldn't even fix the doors and the software that runs the airline. And that had an impact with one of the major airlines, if you're following the news. So it's not applicable only to one organization. It's a cross-cutting problem across the industry and academia. The other bit is lack of understanding of the interconnectedness of the services. So student database may be connected to your browser, may be connected to the courses and the modules the student, may be connected to your LMS, your learning management system. So if one fails, then one might have a ramification on the other system. And the understanding the coupling and the dependency of these assets then helps you in understanding how you can remediate those and mitigate those if there's an accident or if there's a compromise. These are challenges, real challenges. Again, with the complexity of how our networks are, understanding the network, the dependencies, and the software management asset will then allow you to create a recovery process. So if something happened, how do we recover? What are the critical assets we need to recover first? Where are the playbooks? So the playbook is how you instantiate those recovery processes. What are the plans? Do you do disaster recovery plan? Do you do backup plans? How often does it happen? What's the frequency? What's the cadence? Who drives those? These are important artifacts to have in an industry and in any organization, whether it is academia or industry. And the other thing is, do we have trained people? Do we train them in the regiment and in following recovery? Do they understand how recovery works? Are they also trained in terms of the skills, and do they know that that's their role and responsibility if this happens? And these are important issues, and these are the challenges that also inhibiting organizations in order to respond and recover from incident quite quickly. The other bit is a recovery compliance. So the regulations change very so often. So there's a new regulation in terms of cyber resilience that mandates that organizations must have full cyber resilience in place. And there are regulations that drive certain things, but then the lack of investments might actually hinder and become a head wind in terms of organizations being able to adhere and comply to regulatory mandate. So these are some of the challenges we saw. And these challenges apply to any sector, apply to any organization, but in different ways. So we felt, okay, this is a good takeaway for people who want to work in this area to understand that companies don't know what they have because they churn, people go in and out. And those things happen because they are quite a living thing. Resources go, students come and go, the database needs to be updated, the processes need to be updated. There is lack of investment, therefore there's technical debt, and the softwares may not be upgraded in time. There's also the coupling in terms of interdependency between the different networks and the different assets. Therefore, understanding those dependencies would then enable us in terms of how we will instigate and instantiate our playbooks for recovery and for cyber incident response. Okay, moving forward, what we then gathered is, why does it matter? Why does it even matter to do cyber recovery? You might be sitting there and thinking, okay, that's fine, we get it, but then what's the benefit? Why should we do that? The benefit of doing cyber recovery is you be compliant to regulation. So by having that, you comply to the regulators. By having that means you will minimize incidents and you gain trust to your customers. So customers normally go to organizations that they have high trust in. So the same way you would want to, give your data to certain organization, but you wouldn't be so easy to give it to other organizations because you don't trust them. So by having cyber recovery, you are actually gaining trust and building trust with your customers. Whether it is the university building trust with the student, or whether if you work in industry, you build a strong trust that, oh, that is a reputable organization to work with because they will respect my GDPR, they will respect my privacy, they respect my data, but also they have controls to minimize incident happening. The other bit is cyber insurance. If you have good cyber hygiene, your premium will be reduced. And that means you will pay less. So cyber recovery is a good thing because it means that your cyber insurance premiums will go down because you're doing the right thing. It would also reduce your cost of recovery. So if an incident happens, there's a lot of cost that is involved. So you have to hire forensic experts to come and look at it. In the first place, your business will stop working. Okay? The other bit, it would have consequential impact on the bottom line because you'll be fined and your stock market will go down. So even when the CrowdStrike issue happened, which was not related to a cyber breach, it was just an IT failure, they lost up to billions of dollars in the investment because their stocks actually took a hit. So that is the real impact of it. That is the real benefit of having cyber recovery. The other bit is also reporting. So you'll be able to report based on the compliance, based on the mandate, based on the directives. And it means that you will minimize and reduce cyber breaches and you win more business. So there is a lot going for you having a cyber recovery artifact for the organization. And I say this for any student who wants to be go into this area or anyone who's already a practitioner. These are the things that actually bode well for any organization. And that is quite an important thing to have. So what we've done is, given all of this, the benefit, the constraints, the challenges, we created a framework. So this framework, we created this framework in 2020 during the pandemic. And we presented this framework at the IEEE Distinguished Visitors Program. And since then, it's gone through many iterations and is online today. So it's on what we call public preview. So you could actually download the framework and use it as a student. So there are many, this is the framework. So there are many use cases for the framework. As a student, you might want to use it for your master's and PhD work and do some work and refine it and give us feedback and iterate through it. That's one. The other use case is as a professor, you might want to use this to create your curriculum and the course module that you want to train students on. And the framework is so detailed that it walks you through what you need to expect. And I'm not going to go through, I mean, it takes a whole week or so to go through each of those. So I'm just wanting to surface it here. But what this is, why we did it is the question I want to highlight, the rationale. So we looked at the public repositories and the bibliographies. There was no cyber recovery operational framework. So CROFT means cyber recovery operational framework. There were no operational framework for cyber recovery when we did this work. There are, and I say it again, there are cyber recovery framework. So ISO 27001 and the 31000 and the NIST cyber framework touches cyber recovery at the standards level. That's at the framework level, but they're not operational. They would not tell you, here is the procedures you need to do, or here are the mandates you need to create, and here are the things you need to obey. That's why we created this framework. So this is an operational framework, meaning that you could codify this to today and use it to run the assessment in your organization to say, okay, have we got this or haven't we got this? And then use it to benchmark the maturity and hygiene of that organization, and then use it for your cyber insurance and present it to the regulators. That's what the benefit of this. So if you want to get a copy of this, that's a URL of the framework, but also there is a QR code. The QR code is there. So if you take it on your mobile, it will take you to our website, the portal where we have the public preview. Again, do that, but don't be distracted. I want to go through this so that you can understand what this framework is and how you use the framework. And we can always collaborate outside the talk. So if you have taken a picture, or you take your phone and on the camera, it will take you to the URL. If you've done that, that's fine. We can move on. And then you can always look at it later. But I don't want you to be distracted now. So if you've done that, we can move on, right? Okay, super. So let's move on, right? So how does it work? What's the framework? The framework, like any repeatable framework, has what we call the pillars. What you would think about as the domains. So it has the identify domain. So you want to be able to identify the assets of the organization that you want to protect. You want to be able to understand the controls that are available for you to protect those assets. You want to map those controls to the assets it protects. You want to have a plan to instantiate recovery if things happen. You want to be able to play that plan, exercise a TTPs, which is tabletop exercises, do warm active boots, do blue-green deployment, test all of those things. You want to play those. You want to measure what you have done to see, does it fulfill those? Does it give me my acceptable risk parameters? Does it fulfill the objectives of that? Where are the gaps? And then you have to test it to say, okay, it does reach the benchmark or it doesn't. And then there is this continuous improvement, you improve it. So that is how the model works. That's how our framework works. So it starts from identify and it's cyclic. So you've done one exercise doesn't mean you stop there, because it's a living document, it's a living exercise. Always remember that security, in terms of having assessment, is a snapshot in time. So if you've done an exercise today and you look good, and it doesn't mean that you look good tomorrow. The ecosystem changes, the landscape changes, and therefore, even though you've done an assessment that says, okay, there are minimal risk, it doesn't mean that you leave it and go. It means that you have to continue to evolve and improve and refine until you get to a place that you're comfortable. Even at that place of comfort still requires investment into understanding what that ecosystem means. Okay, let's then go deeper. So how does these pillars and domains evolve? How did the framework get to arrive? So what the framework does then, it relies on what we call the building blocks. So I told you about the domain. So you have identified domain, you have the controls domain, the mapping domain, the plan, the play, measure, test, and improve. So if you look at the identified domain, there are about 3 other what we call sub-pillars within there, which we put those as the identifiers. As you go into the framework, if you go into our portal, each of those have a description of some sort, which I don't want to bore you. So RC is recovery. IP means they identify 1, identify 2, identify 3. What it does is each of those sub pillars defines a set of description for you to be able to holistically identify all of your assets. Now, let me give you an example. So if you wanted to identify the hardware assets in your organization and the software asset, these are technical assets. So you would say, okay, we have an Oracle database as an example. We are in this particular cloud, and these are the software we use. This is our learning management system, and we use module in one, and we use another in. So you identify that. Then you also identify the non-technical asset. Who are the administrators? Where are the students' record kept? Where are these non-technical things? And who is in charge of those? And then you want to be able to bring all of those together in order to have a comprehensive picture of what the landscape looks like. Do you follow? That's how this is done. And then if you look at the controls, you want to be able to map the controls you have and say, here are the controls that allow us to do a recovery for an asset if an incident happens. And there are about 4 sub-controls on that. And the mapping aspect maps you and draws the dependencies. So you're looking at how the systems are interdependent with one another and what those dependencies look like in order to understand it. So if you're running a mainframe system, as an example, within the mainframe systems will be logical PEAB and will be subsystems, and within the subsystems are the control objectives. Within the control objective are the various singular units, compute units. So when you're doing these dependencies, if a subunit fails, then the controller will fail, and also the logical path will fail, and the mainframe will be impacted. If you think it that way, imagine your desktop at home or your laptop is a laptop, but you have softwares installed and you have your document. Imagine it's your thesis. Your thesis is probably produced, or you're trying to write that in a Word document. If that Word document goes, that package, that your thesis may be deleted. If you're writing that in LaTeX, as an example, and that LaTeX is corrupt, that document is gone. Yeah, if your laptop is broken, the content is also likely to be broken. So think about it that way. Therefore, these are simple, very trivial examples though. So what you're trying to do is to link the content of your thesis to the actual Word document, to the actual laptop where it's held. So these are the interconnection. You can actually back up the content. So even if the hardware fails, but the content can be reproduced in another system where you can then copy it over. So think about it that way. If you can associate those dependencies, then you're largely in a good place to start in terms of performing recovery. But what you would also understand is that that sequencing also guides you in terms of recovery. Do you want to recover the main system first, and then recover the software, and then recover the content, or vice versa? So that's how the dependencies map as you go into the model. And then the plan is, what are the different plans we need to put in place in order to exercise the recovery plan? How many times was the frequency that we need to run through this? And then it takes you to the play, the measure, the test, and improve. So what I want to then talk about, the next one, is that you can look at this, and then if you go into our portal, you'll be able to see through the definitions of all of the things I've said, and that way it makes sense to you. What we want to then, because I want to give you time to be able to ask me a lot of questions, I hope, is if you imagine from where we started, from that video, and then you've seen that this particular Cybertruck was designed to withstand stress, designed to protect, designed with all the safeties, yet it still failed just during a demo, and it wasn't even it wasn't proportionate to the force that was applied. It accidentally failed. It then tells you that whatever system that you design, you can't just design it and think that you are very secure. You can't design it and think you failed, because the system itself may not fail, but the procedure in which the system operates might fail. The processes surrounding the system might fail. The environment in which that system is placed might fail. Therefore, what is important as you talk through this is to reflect to say, okay, I have to build this knowing that it could fail. It will fail, and it has failed. Therefore, what are the controls? What are the things I need to put in place in order to facilitate recovery from the outset? If, for example, you could have the best systems that are so secure and safety, but is localized in a region that is prone to earthquakes or prone to environmental issues, and that could actually impact the security and safety and protection of that system. So if you bear this in mind, it then takes you to understand that the best construct you can provide in terms of cybersecurity is to plan that it will fail and then building recovery mechanism from the outset. So truly shifting left with recovery, cyber recovery. So you will hear cyber recovery as a design, cyber recovery as a code, cyber recovery baked in. That's what this is. So we're moving cyber recovery from the outset and baking that in as a part of our processes in order to safeguard the system. So I will leave you with this conclusion to say that nothing should be assumed to be secure. Instead, assume it's broken and hence prepare with recovery in advance. Thank you. Take questions. If you want to connect with me, that is the place to connect. So I'll take your questions and I'll hopefully provide you answers.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cyril. Thank you so much. That was such a great session. It's question time. But before anybody, I'd like to ask my own question. And my question is, how can advanced, are you there, Dr. Cyril?
Yes, I am here.
How can advanced technologies like AI and, machine learning, how can they help to improve the speed and accuracy of breach detection? Can they help during recovery efforts? Can they do anything?
Oh, yes. Good, very, very good question. So, and I'll tell you how we've applied here. So we're using AI. I know everybody, so AI has become a buzzword that everyone says they're doing AI. And they're probably doing it in some form or the other. And it could well be they're doing what we call the good old school automation. So automation is part of, you could extrapolate. So how have we used AI for this? And how does AI ML help you with breach detection? They are very good technologies to use for breach detection, to detect there is something that's gone wrong. So if you imagine ML built into detection. So if something happens, so there is a new malware, it will detect as a new malware through threat intelligence, and that detection will happen, and then you will stop that, infiltrating into your environment, and that is very good. So that helps with detection, probably even early detection, where if there is any malware in the out in the fly, then the AI and ML will help you in terms of understanding the signature, understanding the semantics, understanding what we call symptoms. So each of those threads have what we call IOC, indicators of compromise, and then it will allow your system to detect it. But as you have seen, the failures are not only caused by exploits, they could actually be caused accidentally. So as an administrator, you log on and by mistake, you did some of the config changes that impacted the whole ecosystem. The AI or machine learning at that time won't be able to help you because you have impacted that, and therefore recovery is then saying, okay, if you had in play as an example in this case where your systems backed up every 5 minutes, it means that whatever impact you've caused, you could go back in time only 5 minutes lag and then pull the backup and then reinstall those and build from system. That's one way. What we have used ourselves in terms of this is we have used AI in the case of the scenarios. So I will talk about it. So as we're building the recovery, we're asking ourselves, what are the scenarios that could happen to lead to a recovery? So we used AI to then create those scenarios so that you could adapt this framework to different sectors. Let me give you an example. If you work in an oil and gas, you are drilling, you are going to use some different systems, and you want to know the ecology and the environment in that area. So there are certain systems, that specialized systems that you use. Therefore, when we're doing recovery there, we're doing recovery in that sector, energy and gas. If we're doing recovery in the health systems use other systems that are not necessarily used in the energy and gas. For example, patient's record, health systems, the PAS, they call it patient's administration systems. They are different and also face different regulatory requirements. Therefore, how could you adapt this into those specialized sectors? And that's where we're using AI to adapt the scenarios for the different recovery mechanisms in a very sector specific. And we're also using AI in terms of specific use cases. So if it is a ransomware use case, it's a different use case because the ransomware would crystallize by encrypting your database and then requesting for a ransom. Therefore, if we were able to abstract the data, the database, and only have indexes, therefore the actual database wouldn't be encrypted in that scenario. What are we doing with recovery in that sort of sense? And if you would allow, what we call encryption within the database, and I'll still allow you to process the data whilst it's encrypted, you don't decrypt it. So we call it privacy impacting computation. So you hear things like that where you computing the transaction with encrypted data sets. So you don't decrypt it and then compute. That means even if there is a rogue system, it's still going to work on the encrypted cipher. It's not working on the real data. Therefore, the impact is very minimal because it doesn't actually impact the actual data, the data source. So there are a number of ways you can leverage AI in this work, and that's what we're doing as part of the development and improvement of the framework. So that's a good question.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cyril. My last question. So sorry.
Yeah.
Cyber threats are evolving. So how do we ensure that the recovery is not just about getting back to where we are, but it is maybe rather about improving and becoming resilient to future attacks? So how do we ensure that we are not just recovering and getting back to what we used to be, but becoming stronger in case these attacks become more and more?
That's a very good question. Really, really good. So when we started this, one of my building principle is to undersell or underpromise and overdeliver. So we did not budget a resilience framework, and that's for this singular reason. The resilience is what we want to build as an improvement into this. So the first thing was, how do we recover from this? And how do we make it resilient? And you're absolutely right. The ultimate goal is to make it resilient. Mm-hmm. So making it resilient is allowing us to then step through the various mechanisms for us to establish resilience. For example, when you go to the framework, you see there are 4 quadrants. So the first one we wanted to understand is, you're under attack. Can you withstand the attack under suboptimal performance? So if you're under attack, say, let's make it practical, then you're either overwhelmed or underwhelmed, but can you still perform even though it's minimal, suboptimal? And then the other, which is withstanding those attacks. And the other one is, how do you then fully get back to optimal, where you should be? And then how do you become really fully resilient? So that got us into thinking about the various methods we could explore in terms of how do you abstract the framework so that the systems can run in different environments, so that you hear of the blue-green deployment. So if one environment is impacted, the other environment comes up straight away. The customers wouldn't even understand that. A similar concept is like the digital twin. So where one seems like a simulation, but of the real instance. So that's one of the considerations we're exploring. And the other bit is where we don't play. We don't play in this place, but there's another bit where if you wanted to masquerade, you can deploy decoys. Decoys are detection mechanisms that actually masquerade as the real instance, but then are driving the attacker to go to the instances that are not real, but they are just there as if they're the real instance. So that's deception. And that deception allows the attacker to be fooled to go into the things that are not important and allow the system to start to work and still not impacted. That is not the approach we're taking. The approach we're taking is, if you need to stand this up, you probably need to stand it in a way that is fully resilient, is fully available, is like a clustering. So if you cluster it and one node fails, there's still 3-4 nodes that will take off, and a new node spins up and comes back into that. You wouldn't even feel the impact at all. That is the approach we're taking.
Okay, thank you so much. I understand now. Question time, everybody. Please send in your questions.
I'll stop sharing so I can see the people and take questions.
Okay.
While they're thinking through, let me explain other things we've done on the framework. So we've there's a number of organizations that are using the framework today as it is, and they use it to conduct recovery assessment and share data for us, so that we're using that data to enrich some of the controls. And if you're a student and you want to use the framework, almost everything you need is on the website. There's also a link that takes you to where you can log on and use that as an assessment. So you could use that to carry out some recovery assessments by yourself. So you can use that to do an assessment of the university cyber recovery regime and the level that the organization is using the framework. Or if you're already working, you could also use it as an assessment of your organization. And what that allows you is to get your hands dirty, i.e. play with the framework and see what it tells you. So at the back end, how it works, there are cases where it would allow you to upload documents to say, okay, have you got a recovery plan, as an example? And you can say, here is a recovery plan, and you upload that. Or in some cases, it will say, can you list those things? And it will use that to compute what is the gap. And it gets to a level where it tells you, oh, there are, the materials you got are good, but they're not good enough. Here are the gaps. And the gaps then allow you to, carry out your continuous improvement. So, and organizations can then benchmark themselves to say, okay, here is where we are in terms of the maturity model. And we want to move from this maturity to another maturity, and give themselves a roadmap. So you can actually use it to draw a roadmap of improvement for the organization. The other bit for students is also, you can use it, as I said, in your thesis or in your research, to say, this is the bit I'm contributing. For example, I want to look at a use case for quantum computing. We haven't done a use case for quantum computing. How can I deploy this recovery for quantum computing, as an example, or for industrial control system, or whatever area? And then you apply it there, and then you come back to us and say, by the way, we found this framework not very good in this area, in this area, in this area. This is our feedback. So just give you insight into what happened. So we gave this to a facility company. I won't mention the name, but just for sensitivity reasons. So they use it in an industrial control system for similar to a retail, where they stock services, and they felt that there were areas that required improvement in our framework for ICS, particularly for ICS, because of how ICS worked. And that led us to work in terms of OT to IT convergence, and how does the framework play into OT and IT. For those who don't know about OT, OT is operational technology, and IT is information technology. So how does it play well in an OT environment was one of the improvement that was made on the framework, specifically to that particular sector. So something I wanted to share, if you're thinking along the line of, how can I leverage this framework and what can I use it for? So yeah, something to think about. Any more questions?
Good evening, Doctor.
Evening.
Mine is actually not a question. It's just to
say that I appreciate the way you do your explanation and the fact that you take your time to take every bit of the analysis you're doing. Is quite clear in terms of explanation, and I feel I should just say thank you to what you've done.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It means a lot to us. The way I think about things is, if I cannot explain it in a very simple way for people to follow, it means I don't know it. So it means that I need to take you back to say, okay, this is how it works, and here is the example. And I start with the simple examples, then I can then add on top of it so that people can see how knowledge is built up. And that's how I try to work on this. Okay, there's a question about ransomware. What fundamental steps are there to explore for data recovery when? Let me check. So I'm trying to get your question. Okay, yeah, I've got it now. The fell but did not lose sense of, okay. About ransomware, what fundamental steps are there to explore for data recovery when one falls victim? All right, this is a very, very, very important question. I don't know the answers. I don't. So if your data isn't encrypted first and you fall victim, the chances are you don't pay the ransomware or you pay. But if you paid, there are no guarantees that you recover your data because they normally encrypt it. And most times, this is out there in the literature if you read it, I think it's about 60%, as far as I can quote Gartner. Gartner says about 60% of those recovery exercises fail because the keys they give you may not work. And the data could have been corrupted in the process of when they're encrypting that. And it's a problem. So my advice and what I recommend and for different organizations is to actually think through what you need to do before this happens. So the basic is, do you do backup? How often do you do backup? So some organizations will tell you they do backups and they probably do once a week. Does once a week suffice to your risk appetite? Question mark. Take it away, different. The second that is most important, how many people actually test the restoration? You have backed up, how many people actually test if that backup works? I have been in a situation where they take backups, but when they wanted to roll back the backup and put it, the tape didn't work because the tape is obsolete. The tape is muddy and I think is very damp in the data center where this is. And another thing is that you may want to restore and it doesn't restore the whole thing because you didn't test it. So how many people test their backup procedure? How many people test their recovery procedure? So the question then is, I think the most fundamental to answer this and to help you is, if you think that that would happen, I think the most important thing is to say, assuming it has happened, what do we need to do so that we will be in a better place when that happens? A, do active backup, do at least once a week that to start with. Do your recovery in terms of testing the backup work in another system and play back those, ensure that when you restored back the data, that is not corrupt. Test that is actually going to work. And if the organization has funding, they should consider what we call multi-party compute. Multi-party compute, or third-party compute as it's called, is computing with the data encrypted. So remember, you encrypt and then you decrypt and then you compute. No, so you're computing with the encrypted data set. So it's called secure multi-party encryption. You can read it up. And privacy aware encryption is another terminology that's being used. And that would help you in mitigating this. Okay, I'm thinking whether there are agencies or government that specialize. Yeah, there are a number of people that specialize in helping you. So we call them incident responders and recovery agents, but they would run into the same problem I'm trying to describe. So you still pay money, but that project might not be fruitful, might be futile. So the basics is the same. This is physics. The law of physics is the same anywhere. If that data is encrypted and you don't have the key, you're going to find it difficult to decrypt. You could decrypt it, and the decryption failed because they stay garbage in, garbage out, and that wouldn't give you the right thing. So even the people who might promise you they would recover in terms of government or private agencies, in my understanding, not all of those have been successful. You can read it online. So my recommendation would be the precursor and what you need to do before it happens, rather than the aftermath. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, so what's are there any more questions? I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Cyril Onwubiko. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. I'm sure every other person learned a lot as well. Thank you so much for impacting us. I'd like to invite Dr. Celestine Wendy to present the award to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. Cyril, thank you so much for for coming. And the cybersecurity area, we're exploring it in our center now, trying to use AI, looking at all the AI tools. Like you said, some of these tools are actually not there, and some are not 100%. But we are working to see how we can use, in a kind of prompt engineering to see how far we can use AI to do things. So without wasting much time, just to give you what we have and to say thank you for coming. And then with your tool, we're going to share it to our students, and then allow them to test it and then see how we can collaborate with your company. Thank you so much. So we are giving you, can everybody see this now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so we are saying thank you for, we are giving you our own award. I will send.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's really nice.
Yes. So
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll share it down with you in email. And
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And yes. I look forward to coming back again and speaking to you to students and colleagues and lecturers and professors. So I know anytime there is opportunity to come in person, I wouldn't mind to come there and see and collaborate with all of you. So again, you can reach me on email or LinkedIn or wherever. So just feel free. I always like to collaborate. So that's one thing that I think is important in the times we live. No one knows it all. So the more I collaborate, the more I learn. So I'm actually learning myself, work in progress.
I think we'll also bring you in. Next week, we'll be talking with the World Trade Organization in terms of, we're trying to build networks for them with AI and supply chain. We have been teaching them that. And the cyber security area is also very important because they have huge amount of data sets, and then they want to make sure that it is secured and not out, So using ChatGPT and any other LLM should be avoided so that they don't share the information out. So we're working on that. We'll talk about that off camera later on.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And have a lovely weekend.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. We appreciate it. For 5 days have now gone. Your certificates are ready for those who have been consistent. And then next week is going to be, somebody was telling me there are no ladies speaking. I said, next week you have 3 of them, including the IEEE Computer Society president. So she'll be speaking on Monday. So
yeah, all right, because we are meeting, we have a board of governors on Wednesday,
yes.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm actually traveling on Tuesday, so I'll be in Atlanta on Tuesday.
Yes.
from
So,
Tuesday for the whole week. Yeah.
So it will be great next week, and with a whole lot of HR, how to write papers, how to, write a very good CV, how to go for jobs. And, this week has been very technical, but next week we will go into different areas from technical, and then we'll go into HR, and we'll go into how you can get a good job, sustenance, and all kinds of things, including the legal part of it. We'll also bring in terms of like ethics and privacy, and then also we move into, if you want to do PhD, the journeys of PhD. So next week will be very great. Thank you everyone.
And thank you, Celestine. I must say my gratitude for the work you're doing at the University of Bolton, and also for the IEEE Computer Society. You are the chair for the election last 2 months, and continue to help as an evangelist in this area, and a good collaborator. So thank you very much for all you do for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone.
And
Thank
have a
you.
good evening.
Thank you.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.